biodiversity. Scientifically, biodiversity is the amount of variety in a particular habitat or ecosystem. But it's more than just a scientific term. It's everything around us. The plants, the animals, the cities, you. You are a part of biodiversity. And if you stop just for a moment and view the world around you, you'll see that biodiversity is everywhere. It's in the trees, the water, the dirt. No matter where you look, no matter what it is that you're thinking of, it's all connected to biodiversity. And without it, the world wouldn't be the world. Trying to teach you everything about the world, it's a little staggering. So instead, let's break it down. There's two things that you have to worry about: habitats and ecosystems. A habitat is the natural home of something living, and an ecosystem is a collection of many things living together. And there are a staggering amount of ecosystems in the world. For example, this forest. Depending on where you live in the world, your idea of a forest may be totally different from someone else hearing these exact same words. In fact, you're staring at a rainforest. I know, it's not the rainforest you think of. When you think of a rainforest, you're probably thinking of something like the Amazon, right? But did you know that there's both tropical and temperate versions of a rainforest? In fact, Alaska, a place that most people associate with permanent snow, is one of the biggest rainforests in all of North America. And no, before you ask, this is not the Alaskan rainforest. That looks more like this. Not only does Alaska have a rainforest, it actually has 25% of the world's temperate rainforests on the coast. So we called this a temperate rainforest. It's just like a tropical one. The vegetation is really dense, trees are very tall, there's green everywhere. Both types of rainforests are rich in plant and animal species. Although, to be fair, diversity is greater in the tropical rainforests. What this is a montane forest. See, montane forests are found in the mountainous areas and contain plants such as oaks, rhododendrons, and pines, which are characteristic of temperate deciduous forests. We could get incredibly technical very quickly and start discussing all the different types of ecosystems just within a particular category, like a temperate rainforest, and the incredible number of individual habitats within those ecosystems. But let's keep it simple. A habitat is a home. We all live in a house. For some of us, our houses are isolated in nature. For others, their home is surrounded by other homes. Regardless of whether or not you live in a quiet neighborhood, a bustling city, or a secluded mountaintop, your home, your habitat, exists within its own ecosystem. The same can be said for any animal or plant in all of nature. They all have a home that has an ideal ecosystem it relies on. There's two main ideas behind everything in an ecosystem: biotic factors and abiotic factors. These aren't too hard to remember. Biotic has the root word bio in it. Bio means life in Greek. So something that is biotic is living. Your houseplants, your pets, your family, they're all biotic factors in your ecosystem. You are a biotic factor in your ecosystem. Abiotic is just the opposite. The abiotic factors in the ecosystem or habitat are anything that isn't living. continuing with the example of our homes, you might immediately think of things like the walls of your home, your appliances, tables, chairs, whatever. And you're correct. Those are all abiotic factors in a human household. But abiotic factors also include things like the sun, soil, water, air, rocks. Anything that isn't living is abiotic. Got that? Biotic factors are living. Abiotic factors are not. Any ecosystem or habitat is made up of biotic and abiotic things, because everything on Earth falls into one of these two categories. With all this talk about ecosystems, it's really hard not to talk about ecoregions too. Ecoregions are areas of the world that have unique characteristics, setting them apart from others. This term can get mixed up sometimes with ecosystem, and it's actually a new term used in science. Ecoregions are an attempt to move away from the ranked lists of all the different kinds of ecosystems and try to define different areas of the world in a much broader, interconnected sense. But it gets a little bit confusing because an ecoregion can be an entire ecosystem, and an ecosystem can be either bigger or smaller than an ecoregion. It all depends upon what area of the world you're talking about. For North America, the Environmental Protection Agency has classified it as having 15 different ecoregions. And for the most part, you already know them. Most Americans break North America into a few distinct regions, such as the Northeast, New England, the South, the Southwest, the Northwest, the West Coast, Canada, Alaska, Hawaii, which is not really part of North America, but, kind of gets lumped in there anyway. So, take those different ideas about North America and apply a little fancy terminology, and you're going to get what the EPA considers the different ecoregions. The EPA has 3 different levels of ecoregions in North America. At level 1, what most Americans consider the East is termed an eastern temperate forest. The same can be applied for the Midwest and even California. Those ecoregions are the Great Plains and Mediterranean California, respectively. Now, you're probably wondering why regions such as New England or the South aren't classified as their own unique regions. But actually, they are. If we go up into level 2 designations, the different ecoregions rise to 50 unique areas. New England is no longer simply eastern temperate forest. It becomes divided into Atlantic highlands and mixed wood plains. The South gets the same treatment, becoming southeastern U.S. plains, Mississippi alluvial, and southeast coastal plains. But it gets even more complicated. If we go to the highest level of designation, those numbers go from 50 to 182 ecoregions in North America. Now, trying to memorize all these different areas where everything is at, where each ecoregion exists, is, while possible, not something I'd personally want to be doing on a Sunday afternoon. However, the neatest thing about these different ecoregions is that once you've lived and explored an area long enough, you'll actually create a mind map of these all on your own that's shockingly similar to what the EPA scientists have developed. So, why are these important? Well, by dividing areas of the nation and the continents into unique classifications, it allows scientists, developers, conservation groups, even just people who like being outside, to monitor, assess, and make decisions that are best for that unique collection of habitats and biotic factors. So, we just learned ecoregions are incredibly important because they help us define areas that have a biodiversity unique to a specific place. Which brings us into the idea of species. There's 4 main types of species that most flora and fauna fall under: endemic, native, invasive, and keystone. If a plant or animal exists only within a particular ecosystem, then it's considered endemic to that place. For example, the redwoods of California. When you're talking about the redwoods of California, they only grow in a very specific ecosystem. That ecosystem has to be inside a fog belt ranging from 5 to 35 miles wide along a coast and from around 100 to 2,000 feet in elevation. On top of this, where redwoods grow have to be in valley bottoms where there's abundant fog drip, alluvial soils, and there has to be a flood around every 30 to 60 years. And it just so happens those conditions only exist in the coastal hills of California, and also in Oregon. Nowhere else in the world has that specific requirement to allow redwoods to grow, let alone thrive, which makes redwoods endemic to that particular area. But there are other species, other plants and animals that are native to that kind of ecosystem, but they might exist in other places in the world outside of the redwood forests. So, an endemic species only exists in one very specific place. A native species can exist in many different areas, many different ecosystems, even if those endemic species share space with native species. Invasive species are everywhere. Anywhere you look, you are going to find plants or animals that are more adept at surviving than others. This guy is American wisteria. It's native to the southeastern United States, which is where we are right now. But what's invasive about this is that it has these long vines that trail all throughout. And if it's not contained, it's actually so good at growing that it can take over other places. Now this is weird because it's actually a member of the pea family. So this guy right here is English ivy. It's probably one of the most common landscaping plants in all of North America, but it's actually an invasive species. It's not native to this part of the world. Whenever this gets out into the wild, it is so aggressive. It grows so quickly that it can actually choke out and kill trees and anything on the ground. Here's what happens. These little vines right here, they start to actually climb up this tree. And if left unchecked, they will actually choke out the tree themselves. Because underneath each one of these is a tiny little root system. So as the plant is growing, as it's putting out more leaves, it's actually growing more roots too. Which means, as long as there is one leaf to the English ivy, its growth will just continue until there's nothing but English ivy. What is a keystone species? Well, a keystone species is any plant or animal that plays a major role in their environment. Without keystone species, an entire ecosystem become unstabilized and actually collapse. For example, bees. Now, we all know what bees are, but did you know that they're vital to the health of any ecosystem that needs to have pollination to be healthy?